Well, hello, builders. We would love to welcome you to this episode of the Build Your Success podcast. It is great for you to be a listener here. If you're a returning guest, welcome back. If you're a new listener, we hope you'll get some insight and gain some nuggets from this episode. Here at the Build Your Success podcast, we like to build you so you can build others. We do that through our training, speaking events, and our coaching. So check out our website, www.buildcs.net, to see what we offer. But I've also got a guest here today. I've got my friend, Frank Kendrick. Frank is the CEO of New Jack Companies. That's a full-service construction firm established in April 1992. He's been operating in Central and South Florida. Frank is a visionary, servant leader, and a motivational speaker. Frank holds a Bachelor of Building Construction degree from the University of Florida and a Master of Arts degree in Ministerial Leadership from Southeastern University. Frank's company, New Jack, has been featured in many national and regional publications, local and national news articles, magazines, television specials, and recently New Jack was recognized by Business Observer as one of the top 30 contractors in the Central Florida area. The firm went virtual in June of 2019, so we're going to talk about him being a trendsetter here shortly, but it's now celebrating 2 years of being a virtual firm. New Jack has been able to conduct business as usual throughout this COVID crisis. Frank and his wife, Sanji, are the proud parents of 3 young adults, Morgan, Tyler, and Brandon. He credits his belief and fellowship with God, his love for his family, and his strong sense of vision and purpose for his success. His favorite scripture is found in Proverbs 29:18, "Without a vision, the people perish." Well, Frank, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate your inviting me, and I think it's exciting what you've been doing and just how you've been helping a lot of folk and building people so that they can realize their own dreams and goals. So I'm excited about being here.
Yeah, I'm grateful that you are here. You know, you and I have partnered together on a few other things, and that's how we became friends. And, you know, you're just a great guy. And you also really are a visionary leader. So I'm going to ask you the question we ask all of our guests here. What does leadership and being a leader mean to Frank Kendrick?
Well, I heard somebody say once that the guy that thinks he's leading and no one is following, he's just taking a walk. So I think principally, if you're a leader, then you have to be able to inspire others to follow. And that's not often a very easy thing to do. I think for me personally, it's that scripture that you just heard that is one of my favorite scriptures is without vision, people perish. Another translation of that actually says that without vision, people cast off restraint. And it's kind of like that adage you've heard, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And so it's being able to have a goal, have a vision, and being able to, track it and follow it. And leadership for me is being able to help people to realize their own personal goals and dreams. But oftentimes those dreams and those goals, they synchronize with your own personal goals and dreams. And so you end up, working together, leading together, and all reaching your goals together. So that's what leadership is to me.
I like to hear that together part. It sounds like inclusion to me. So that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, one of the things you led on, and that's what I really invited you to the podcast about. You're a trendsetter, man. So your company went virtual in 2019. And so you're actually celebrating 2 years as a virtual firm. So you kind of got ahead of the curve. I want to ask you, you told me earlier that you listened to your team and made that decision to go virtual. So first of all, that's a great leadership. What did your team tell you?
Well, it was pretty interesting. It was, again, it sounds easier now that I'm looking back. But at the time, I felt like I was kicking and scratching. But we had about 4 different employees that were team members that were what we all, they were millennials. And so every time I say millennials, I kind of feel like the millennials are coming, it's kind of like this different group, but now we have the Gen Zs. But anyway, I won't digress. But we have had shared to-do list type software that we collaborate quite a bit on projects. And so you take one particular project, it may have 30 different activities that need to be performed, but those activities, you have different people with different positions that have to take care of some of those tasks. And so what happens is when you're in this collaborative environment and you have activities that are assigned to, team members, you can see in real time whether they're doing it, they're slacking, or what they're doing, and communicate with them as well. But I noticed that a lot of our millennials were killing it. And we had this policy where you can work remotely for 1 day a week. But I noticed that, like, while they were not, you don't see them in the office. They're probably at some Starbucks, Panera Bread, some coffee house, wherever. It could be home. But you could see that they're killing it. I mean, they're getting a high productivity, and they started coming to me and saying, "Hey, why do we have this policy of, working remotely, and you're limiting it?" You yourself talked about how much we get done during the day. Why don't you just remove the policy? I was like, "Are you kidding me? No. What is it? You don't want to be in the office?" And so anyway, after some arm twisting, I said, "Okay, let's do 2 days a week." And still, we kind of went on, and then noticing that they took advantage of those 2 days. They were not in the office. And so pretty soon, we had an executive meeting. We talked about it, and we agreed to remove the entire stipulation that you can only work remotely 2 days a week. Well, guess what? There was hardly anybody in the office. And I'm like, we've got 5,400 square foot office building. And, I can count on one hand how many people are in the office. Everybody's working remotely, but they're getting things done. And so the dean for construction school at Florida came by the office. He was kind of touching base with some of the alumni. And I was telling him about this issue that we were having. And he told me, he said, well, Frank, I think this is a trend that I think it's going to be here to stay. And I said, well, I don't know any construction companies that are doing this. And he said, well, I do know one. And I said, who? And he told me a guy, Farik, out of New York City. And he said he has 75 employees with no physical plant. And I said, I want to talk to him. And he gave me his number. I called him. We talked an hour and 45 minutes. And I was asking him all kinds of stuff. And it just seemed like it was never land. Like, I'm just talking to this guy, and I'm like, and he's telling me he's home right now, sitting outside, with his laptop, by his pool. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. You're running this multi-million-dollar company, and I couldn't understand how you could do that. Anyway, brought that information back. We went back, we did some research, and I've told a long story, so I can't make it shorter. But anyway, we decided, and this was in February, we decided that we would start looking at going virtual. So from February to June, we did everything that we needed to do to get prepared for it. And in June of 2019, we went virtual. We leased our office building out, and saved a bunch of money and worked remotely. So,
wow, that's awesome, and great that you got ahead of that curve that we all faced in 2020. Frank, the way I found out that you weren't in your office anymore, when I was near your office one day, I was like, hey, I'm gonna stop by and see Frank. That 5,400 square feet you talk about was beautiful because you showed construction things. They were elements of construction that were exposed in your building. And a construction guy like me, I just loved the architecture and the way you left a lot of the structure exposed for us guys to see. And it was a great advertisement for your business of the type of business you do as well. So I know it had to be hard. So what were your hesitations? You mentioned a few of them earlier, but what were more of your hesitations to not go completely virtual?
Well, there's a couple things, but one of them was obviously not being able to see people, in their space working. There's something about actually seeing the people work. You feel like you're not being cheated. You feel like everybody's working together. And so that's where trust came in. Again, I think in every company, you have, A, B, and C level performers. We call them 1, 2, and 5 talent people. And so the 2 talent people, they're going to do everything that you tell them to do. Nothing more, nothing less. They're going to show up every day at the same time. They're going to leave every day at the same time. They're going to go to lunch. In fact, there are often people that will bring their lunch, and they'll eat in the cafeteria or in the break room, and very methodical. 2 talent, get it done. 5 talent people, they do not only their job, but oftentimes they'll do other people's job. They're more motivated by the overall goal. They're motivated by the company, advancing the company forward. And the 1 talent people are the people that are full of excuses. They're not going to do their work. They're just going to be always a day late, dollar short, that kind of stuff. And so in every company, you're going to have that. And so my fear was really the 1 talent people, the people who, are not self-disciplined, people who you have to, you got to ask them, well, did you do this? And you have to constantly follow up with them. So that was one of my biggest fears is obviously feeling like the company is getting shortchanged. The other thing is lack of presence. You mentioned earlier, we built this building. We have this nice building there, and it's great location, great looking building. People ride by, hear all the time, hey, we rode by your building, building looks great. So all of a sudden, when you don't have that building, you don't have that big New Jack there, how do people know that you're around and you're not dead, And so that was obviously one of our other fears that we had to combat. So those were the 2 biggest ones.
Yeah, and I will be honest, when I saw the empty building, I went, oh, no, I hope Frank didn't go out of business during COVID. So, that was what I thought. But, you mentioned some of your colleagues that are working in coffee shops doing that. In construction, as soon as they gave me a laptop, man, and our job sites, we've been working hybrid for years because our job sites are in the field. When you go to the field, right, you got to make these field trips. And I would work from a coffee shop, from a library, wherever between meetings, and not have to drive all the way back to the office to get something done. If I could do it, in 30 minutes, stop somewhere and take care of it with a laptop computer. So I know, at least in my business, the industrial world, and we've been doing the hybrid for a long time. And I got interviewed recently by a news agency about how the hybrids are going to work. And I was like, I believe they can work really well as long as people are making very clear expectations, both from the employer and the employee, of what that hybrid looks like. It sounds like you started off with a hybrid and you had some very clear expectations and everyone knew what was going on. And then you took time to transition, which I think was very smart.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that hybrid, you're right. We're in construction. A lot of what we do, particularly with project managers and administrative staff, you're going to have to deal with that duality. The other part to that is that you do have your superintendents in our field that are they're located in the field. They're positioned on that job, and fortunately and unfortunately, these guys can't. There is no such thing as remote superintendent. You got to be there on the job site every single day, and so that was one of the unintended consequences as well, is that you kind of have this haves and have-nots. You have the people that get the leisure of being able to work remotely from different places, and then you have the superintendent say, hey, we want to be able to do that. Why can't we do that? So you have to be creative with to not create this have and have not, them and us kind of thing. But yeah, that hybrid model is certainly, I think, with COVID, I think more companies are seeing that you have to have that duality, particularly in this age of globalization. It's just crazy.
It sure is.
Yeah. The
So you
world is
said,
getting flatter, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things you said was that, people like to come together, people like to, interact, see each other. How do you overcome that in this new, you're one, so far as your office is concerned, you're 100% virtual. What do you do to facilitate some face-to-face activities?
Well, so one of the things you have to do is you have to be intentional about having one-on-one time with your team members, and giving them a vehicle that they can communicate with you, and vice versa. And so, going to lunch, going out, our senior staff actually makes it out to our projects. Myself make it out to our projects and spend time, one-on-one, go to lunch, whatever, with uh, team members in the field. Also having encouraging team members going to lunch with each other, having that one-on-one time. You have a project manager and a superintendent going to lunch together, and they're having that face-to-face time that they can, talk about some of the intangibles, and how's your family, those kind of things. And then having setting time that overall corporately, you can get together corporately, everyone. So having everyone meet, at a restaurant, or having a company get together and those things like that. So that's kind of how you overcome that. And then the other part is, just social media is just a crazy phenom, and a lot of the construction software now is very interactive, and social media platforms. And so actually clicking a like button, like when our superintendents do their daily reports, I'll often read it, or, type in there and make notes, or put a like, and those things like that. So, you have to be intentional about that.
Yeah, that's great. And I like the idea that you are doing the likes on their daily reports, because you want to reinforce that positive reinforcement of, hey, I'm enjoying what you're showing me. I like to tell our team about the daily reports is take me to the job site.
I
It's
love that.
it's not
I
really
love that.
about just completing a daily report and logging the people and the
Yeah.
equipment and what happened, but take me to the job site. Explain to me what great thing you did today on your daily report. So that's awesome.
I'm going to take that one, Brian. I love
Yes, sir.
that. I love that.
Well, you and I share a passion for empowering youth and young people. I love, you've helped me a couple of times with the ACE Mentor program. By the way, that went virtual this year. And at first I was like, oh man, of all things to go virtual, I can't get in there with them students and, help them and guide them in person. But however, I got a lot more volunteers last year because of the virtual nature of it. They could, just come to a Zoom call and speak to the students, or come into a session that way. So it had its pluses and minuses. I'm looking forward to going back into the classroom this coming year, but the ACE Mentor program is something I do. But you say here in your resume and bio, his personal vision is to help empower those who may not have had the opportunities that he has had. You serve on several community boards, and you're passionate about the education of our youth, and you actively engage with nonprofit organizations to provide mentorship, something that I really believe in, and then financial literacy. So give us some ideas, some things you're doing to help these people that haven't had the experiences you've had.
Yeah. So a couple things come to mind. One is there's a program called Optimus. It's Optimus International, and I know you may have heard that. So actually, my son, who's now a senior in college, was a speaker, and I kind of coached him as he came up, and just enjoyed doing that. He had an opportunity to win several oratory contests, and went to international competitions and things like that. And so what happened is, after he had graduated from high school, I was like, what am I going to do? I don't have anybody to coach, in oratory skills. And so I actually reached out to the high schools and asked if they had any students that would want to compete in oratory competitions, and was excited to get a few names of some students, and I was able to reach out to them and start training them. And at one time I had 8 students all together that I was training and coaching on being able to use their oratory skills. And all of our kids, scored, in the first, second, or most of them in first or second place in most all of the competitions that they competed in, and were able to get scholarships. I have students that are now in college. I just got an email from one of the young ladies that was able to coach, and she was just sitting there reflecting, saying, Mr. Kendrick, if you hadn't, pushed me and nudged me in this area, I think about all the money that I was able to get for scholarship money for school, that I would not have had to do it. So anyway, that's just one of the things and that I've done and still do enjoy doing, several different venues for oratory. The other thing is there's an organization called RISC, and Jeffrey Williams is the CEO of that organization, and they started this thing called Teen Business Camp. It was a summer camp that basically taught students, high schoolers, business skills, and they had stopped doing it. And I reached out to him and asked him, hey, this was something I used to admire about what you did, and why'd you stop? And he said, well, I needed support, I needed financial, blah, blah, blah. And so we called him in and said, what can we do to partner with you? And we were able to get that program back up, and we assigned staff, including myself, to help them. And, we reached out in the community and got businesses, banks, schools to partner with us. And we had 13 different organizations that partnered with us with this Teen Business Camp, that we were able to, work with these students every single summer, except this one with COVID, we weren't able to do it. But that's something that's very exciting, being able to work one-on-one with those students, and just really, I can get into a lot of that. I can tell you stories about it, but I think it was just a wonderful, very rewarding, being able to reach back and help them, just as if, like my coach, my high school coach, my high school geography teacher, my high school, my 6th grade teacher, one of my principals. These guys were like part of my Hall of Fame, that just reached out to me when I was that age, and just cared enough to, sacrifice some of their time and to teach me some things and to help me, and I owe every bit of the success that I've had today on them. And so this is part of just being able to pay it forward.
That is wonderful. And it's great, when we realize we have those people that are willing to pour into us and help us and guide us. And now you're paying it forward. You're realizing, hey, other people need this. You're speaking about the oratory skills, and I can say that word now, Frank, but it usually never fails when I bring an engineer in to speak to the high school students. They talk about having to realize, they're very technical. You're an engineer, you become very technical, and you have no intentions of being a speaker, a public speaker. However, now you're the engineer that has to make a presentation to a client to get them to buy your work. And usually 9 times out of 10, those engineers tell the students, hey, listen, Brian and this team of mentors here are trying to encourage you on your public speaking skills. Pay attention, because you're going to need these, whether you're an engineer, an architect, a general contractor. All of us have to show our capabilities through speaking and through proposals, through writing. That was the one thing I discovered when I got into management. I realized I got to write bid letters. And English was my worst subject. So it's just, and that's part of the reason why I got involved with high school students, to show them the why. Because when I was in high school, I asked my pre-algebra teacher, why do we have to know how to do this to buy a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk? And she didn't have an answer for me, number one. But number two, I wish she would have said, Brian, do you plan to buy milk and bread? Are you going to be a purchasing agent for Publix the rest of your life? Because you're going to need these things, so that's just what I love to do, is show the students how it applies.
Brian, you could see it. I look at you and just the way you sacrifice your own personal time to help facilitate these youth when you don't even, you didn't know them, but you just reach out and you care enough to show you care. And I can just see that passion in you. And I so appreciate what you've been able to do. And you've just done an outstanding job there with the youth program there. I just, it's just outstanding. So my hat's off to you.
Well, you're doing well with the programs you're working on too, Frank. And I may not know some of those students, but I know that 14-year-old brat high school kid, Brian Brogan, that asked those stupid questions of the algebra teacher. So that's why, I just got to get back and help and do what I can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Frank, listen, it's been great to have you on the podcast today. Where can our listeners find out more about Frank and about New Jack?
Go to www.newjack.com, and that's spelled NUJAK.com. And
that's perfect.
It tells you how to reach us and tells you a little bit about us.
And then they can also find you on LinkedIn as well, right? I think you're pretty active there.
Yeah, that's right. LinkedIn as well. That's right.
So for our listeners, we'll include that in the show notes today. You'll be able to find out about Frank and about New Jack. They're a wonderful company based here in Central Florida, working all over the state. But it's been a great friend of mine, been an advocate of what we're doing with the youth and how I got involved in the podcast. So thanks, Frank, for being on the podcast today. For our listeners, go over to our website, buildcs.net. You can find out about our programs, special offers, events, and just everything we're doing. I will tell you that we are hosting Live to Lead on October the 8th. That's a Friday, and we'll just stay tuned. But that's the save the date teaser for you for the John Maxwell team. So thanks for listening to the podcast today. Remember to build yourself and then build others.